Coming to you from the Windy City. Welcome to Let's Talk Shop, a podcast about all things cloud and enterprise tech. Listen to insights and guest interviews with IT thought leaders and professionals. Now, here's your host, Elias Knaser.
Today, it really is a great honor, a great pleasure to have someone I met in 2019 when we were working on a keynote for a presentation. He is the Chief Global Water Officer for Charity Water, one of my favorite charities. Christoph Gorder, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a while. How have you been?
It's great to be here. Look, we survived. It's been a heck of a 2 years here. Up and down, both in so many different ways, at home, just the pandemic, the challenges that, so many people have faced, that we've all faced ourselves in adjusting to this new reality. But here we are. We survived.
That's right. Hopefully we're on the tail end of this thing. We'll see. They keep coming up with new Greek letters.
I know. I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, unfortunately. So for those that aren't familiar with Charity Water, what is Charity Water?
Okay, so Charity Water is we're a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to providing clean and safe drinking water to people around the world. So many people don't know that there are almost 1 billion people around the world who don't have access to clean and safe drinking water. So that means that they're drinking water from swamps and ponds and streams. And this is extremely unsafe and creates a lot of disease, death, and just great suffering for people around the world. So our organization works very hard to change that. So we raise money from individuals across the world, and then we put that to work in mostly remote rural communities across Africa and Asia, to build them clean water systems. And we've been around for about 15 years. So we've given just over 15 million people access to clean and safe drinking water, which is something we are both very proud of, but also realize how much more work there is to be done out there.
I'm so proud of you guys. And folks, for those of you that are listening, I'll have links in the description for those that are interested in donating or becoming part of this. And Christoph, correct me if I'm wrong, but the clean water has a very transformational effect on communities, right? So whether it's the effect it has on women or on education, tell us a little bit more about, because people think, clean water, okay, so you avoid some disease, but it really is the foundation.
It is transformational, as you said. I mean, we say water changes everything, and clean water does touch every aspect of your life. And so I think there's a number of ways to look at this. At an economic level, there's a definitive study that was done that says that for every dollar invested in clean water and sanitation, it provides between $4 and $12 of economic growth and economic returns in a particular area. So economically, so you think about like, okay, well, that's a numeric kind of way, but from a practical, like household point of view, what would it mean for me? What happens in many of these communities is people are walking long distances to get access to water, to get even dirty water. And the task of this mostly falls to women and girls. So women and girls are walking 2-3 hours a day to go and fetch dirty water, which is time that they're not spending in school, not spending with their families, not spending on their farms, creating small businesses. And so when they get an access to clean water, not only is it affecting their health, but they're getting all of this time back. I mean, imagine if somebody just took away 3 hours of drudgery every single day, what you would do with that time. That's absolutely amazing. So it's hard to imagine, any human development happening without clean water, because it's just like a vicious cycle of you make a little bit of progress, but then you get sick. You make a little bit of progress, but then you're off fetching water. And so clean water is kind of the foundation, the starting block for all other human development to happen in health, in education, in women's rights, in equity, in family income. So we can't imagine a fruitful world without clean water.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how here in the West we take these are things we take for granted. Like you expect the clean water, but you don't really realize the impact of that or how many people around the world don't have that. So, folks, again, it's a great cause, and they've got some really powerful videos and some amazing stuff. I'll link to most of this down in the description. Take a look and see if you can become part of this in any way, shape, or form. But let's shift gears a little bit. So last time we met was in 2019. We actually visited the Cherry Water offices. I loved your offices, by the way. But then COVID hit. So I'm curious, how did you guys make it through COVID? Like, what were some of the challenges? Did it hinder any of the projects? Did it slow you down? Especially because all of these were in underdeveloped countries that probably got hit more so from COVID, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, the beautiful office that you saw doesn't exist anymore.
Really?
we went fully remote, and our staff we have about 90 staff here in the States are now living in 24 states and 3 countries.
Wow.
So what happened in COVID, like we were based in New York City and the office closed, and it closed and months and months and months go by. People left the city, people, bought houses in the suburbs, put their kids in school. And so, when it came time last year where it started to look like we could open up again, we looked around and, 40% of our staff had left the city. And if we looked at the leadership level, sort of like department heads and above, 75% of those people had left the city. And so
Wow.
It was very difficult for us to put it back. We kind of made the hard decision to say, the worst would be sort of the middle ground of doing this hybrid of like, some people in the office, but some people out. So we said, we'll go fully remote. And I think we've given up a lot in terms of culture and cohesion. And you saw the magic that was our office. Like, it just really embodied the enthusiasm, the optimism, the creativity of the organization just really came through as a great space. So we've given that up, but at the same time, the flexibility that we all have. I mean, I used to commute to and from the office. Now, like, I have breakfast and dinner with my kids every day, and it's amazing. So it's different. We've given up some stuff. We've gained some stuff. In terms of like the business, what was interesting to us was in the developing world, when COVID hit, the clean water became pivotal in terms of the fight against the spread of COVID. Because so the strategy in the developed world in the United States was flatten the curve. Keep the people out of the hospitals, right? So keep the hospitals beds open. But in the developed world, and these countries in Africa, there just weren't hospital beds to start with. And, there are countries with like no ventilators in the whole country, and so flattening the curve was not an effective it wasn't an effective strategy that was going to work in those environments. So instead, what they had was hygiene. So wash your hands. You got to have access to clean water, and health education, and those are both absolutely core things to what we do. So we're not only just building water projects, but a big part of what we do is educating people on how to use the water. Because I can give you all the clean water in the world, but if you don't wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, you're going to get sick. And so what's interesting is, when we work in a community, building the infrastructure might take 2 weeks, but our team is working in the community for a whole year on behavior change, on how to build your latrine. So, how to build a good latrine, how to wash your hands, how to store the water. And so that got like repurposed very quickly and to incorporate COVID messaging. So that was really effective. Our folks in the field across 21 countries really swung into action. They got designated very quickly as sort of like frontline workers. So they were able to move around even in national lockdowns. And after kind of the initial scare in 2020 of like, in March and April and that, that first half of the year where, we're just all so afraid of like what was going to happen.
Right.
We kind of survived that. And 2020 turned out to be actually less disrupted than we thought from a business continuity point of view. And then 2021 has bounced back. It's our best year ever. And 2022, so far, knock on wood, we're just, we're going great. I mean, we were able to reach 2.1 million people with clean water last year.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. 2.1 million people. I mean, it's just a staggering number of people.
So I mean, Charity Water has contributed to the fight against COVID, then, especially in
Absolutely.
underdeveloped. Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, we repurposed, all of our partners kind of refocused on that. They were building mobile hand washing stations at public locations like markets or bus stations. They were doing PSAs on the radio. In many of these rural areas, one of the common things to do is you do PSAs on the back of with like speakers on the back of a truck or a motorbike. And so you hire a guy to go around and give people messages and whatever. So they composed like catchy like pop tunes around COVID, and like there were so many creative ideas. But it was kind of all hands on deck there for a little while. And now COVID education is just kind of incorporated into the main curriculum of what we do in any community.
Amazing. Amazing. Good job. So everyone listening is probably like, well, Eli, this is a tech podcast. So how is this kind of related? So let's bring it home. So again, last time we met, 2019, it was amazing how much technology, how much thought you guys were putting into these wells to convert them into smart wells, the sensors that you were looking into developing and potentially deploying. Has there been progress along those lines, or did COVID kind of slow it down and focus more on the charity work aspect of it? Like, give us a little bit of an update on the tech side. Where are we at?
Yeah, I mean, tech has always been core to our ability to accomplish our mission. So our mission is to give everybody access to clean water. Our vision is to reinvent charity. And to us, that's always meant, from the beginning, like we're not trying to build like the next Red Cross. We're inspired by the tech companies. We're inspired by, the Twitters and the Teslas and the Apples around the world. And we look to those, the tech industry as kind of the model for like, how do we just think about things completely differently, use technology to solve problems that have been endemic for a long time. So we've always had a culture of early adoption. We were like, I think we were the 6th brand on Instagram. We did virtual reality very early on. Oh, yeah. We launched a Bitcoin fund last year, which, the real innovation in our Bitcoin fund, charities have taken Bitcoin for a long time, but our innovation was to say, we're going to sort of join the Bitcoin community and we're going to hold on to our Bitcoin, because charities typically, if you can donate Bitcoin to a charity, but they immediately cash it in like they would a normal stock, which is if you give GE stock to a charity, like we cash it in and move. So that HODL, hold on for dear life, like we're like in there with our Bitcoin fund, and that kind of tech ethos has always been part of our culture. So the project you're talking about is it's a fascinating project. I've worked on this a lot. The idea is to build a remote sensor which you can fit on a water system in a remote, far off place, and it'll monitor the flow of water and the performance of the system and send that up to the cloud where it can be analyzed. And any anomalies, you can inform if there's any breakdowns, you can inform a local mechanic, and they can get out there and fix it right away. And there's very little service interruption. So, remote sensors have revolutionized our lives. My car doesn't just break down anymore. It has a check engine light, and I take it in and they fix it and I'm back on the road. For these remote communities, getting their wells fixed once they break down can take weeks, if not months. And so it's a really big problem around the world. There's probably 3 billion people who live in rural areas in the developing world that have self-managed small water systems, right? So we're like, there's a huge need out there. So we started working on this a few years ago. Google gave us a grant to kind of seed it and seed the R&D. For anybody who's ever worked on an original IoT device, you'll understand the pain that we've been through, because it is really, really hard to develop one of these yourselves. So after a lot of R&D, we've got the new generation in the field right now. We started installing them in December in a big pilot in Uganda, and we're kind of rolling them out nationally there. And it's amazing. Like, I can look on my dashboard and see, we measured 23 in March. We measured 23 million liters of water for the first time. Like, nobody's ever measured this before, and I can tell you what hour of the day and what GPS location, and it's just like it's an amazing device that has the potential to just kind of revolutionize the accountability, the service levels around humanitarian aid, which is, one of the big criticisms of our sector is like, well, like stuff doesn't really work out there, or it gets diverted or whatever. So you can imagine you put a sensor on it, you're like, no, let me show you, like, there are people using this every single day. It's going to be a game changer, I think.
So you're not only building these wells and then handing it over to local communities to manage it, you're continuously monitoring them and maintaining them as well. Am I correct?
Well, we're providing the monitoring tool to local maintenance teams.
Okay.
And so I think, the way I think about our overall responsibilities, we're in the business of making sure that people have access to clean water for a long time. And the way we accomplish that is through projects, but we're not in the business of just building projects. And so what we discovered pretty early on is, yes, it's, you got to build the project, you got to build it well. You have to build the local ownership, you build the management team. They're charging like maintenance tariffs to the people who use it. Like there's a whole system there. But if we stay involved as Charity Water, continue to monitor it, check in periodically over the course of the next 10 years, which takes a lot of discipline and long-term thinking.
Oh yeah.
The success rate increases exponentially. The failure rate drops, because what happens is people run into little problems that they can't fix themselves. Most of the problems they fix themselves, but every once in a while they run into something that they can't fix themselves. And unless you're still in touch with them, you're never going to know about it. And our problem has been, it's really expensive to do that with human beings. You got to put a guy on a motorcycle, you got to pay him the salary. So now with remote sensors, it cost me $200 to build the sensor and about $30 for 10 years worth of telecom. So let's say for $250, I can put that on a $15,000 pump. And for $250, I can have real-time data on that for the next 10 years. So the price of getting information and intelligence and data has gone I mean, it's like fractions of a penny on a dollar compared to what it has been. So we're really excited about how you can scale that. And then anybody who works with data, understands that, you start out with a simplistic idea, right? Oh, we'll get the data. If it breaks down, we'll send a mechanic. But then you start to see all these other things you can do with the data, right? Like, for example, now we're looking at at all these locations. We're saying, well, which wells are being sort of overused? Some of these wells, they're being pumped like 16 hours a day. Like they need another water system there. There's too many people on this. So you start to be able to see these things from the data. Another area we're really excited about is pay for results and like paying incentives based on the data, right? So I give you a contract, Ellie, and I say, hey, you take care of these 100 wells. Any well that's above 97% functionality on any given day, I'll pay you a reward every single day. It goes into your mobile wallet. It's automatic. Data transfers money into your mobile wallet. So you start to see like how.
So that was the smart contract conversation, right? Is that
right.
Still kind of what?
Right. So we use a smart contract. So we're starting to pilot this now with based on incentives and a smart contract where sensor data will then determine payments directly to service providers on the ground.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
you're able to have heat maps of the wells that are generating more and realizing that, hey, maybe we need another one here so that you can reduce that. You're tying their maintenance essentially to to an incentive program using smart contracts and crypto. This is awesome. This is a super.
Again, we're trying to look for. The world of tech is so exciting. Like so many amazing things are happening out there. We're trying to serve some of the world's most vulnerable people. So it's like, how do we take the cutting edge and apply it to help people who need it, man? There's so many cool snazzy applications that we have for tech that aren't really that life changing. They're fun, but these are things that really, really change people's lives. And so that's what gets us excited, is just how do we reinvent charity? How do we make charity how do we make charity exciting? How do we make charity tech forward? How do we make charity,
different?
Yeah, different and cutting edge.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So right now the sensors are communicating over, I assume, traditional LTE or 4G, 3G communications or cell towers. with what Amazon is doing and what SpaceX is doing with whether Starlink or Amazon has a similar program with these satellites that they're launching to bring internet to underdeveloped countries and rural areas, do you foresee or do you see a situation where maybe you piggyback on a Wi-Fi system as opposed to the comm towers, or is that's pretty stable for you?
It's a possibility. So we satellite connectivity is not currently a great option for us for two reasons. First is because the data still costs a fair amount of money, a lot more than sending it over the GSM network. And secondly, it's a power management issue. It uses a lot more power for us to send a radio signal all the way up to a satellite versus to the local cell phone tower. And our sort of, one of our big design constraints was we want to create a device with a lithium battery in it that doesn't have to be recharged for 10 or changed for 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
And so we invested really heavily in power management. So all of the microprocessors and everything that's happening on there is all designed to be as power light as possible. And that, the satellites are 150 miles up, 200 miles up or something like that. So sending that takes a lot of power. Now that might change, and the way to do it is to do sort of a mesh network where you've got there's a technology called LoRaWAN, which is very low, requires very low power, and that goes to a hub, and then the hub goes up. So you can power the hub with a solar panel and or put it on the grid or something like that. So we haven't really gone in that direction. I think you need a little bit more density in of sensors. So like if you have a lot within like a half mile, then it works. But LoRaWAN is another possibility, and then we could send it up. Actually, though, I mean, the interesting thing is GSM penetration in rural Africa is like almost 100%.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we were installing sensors in northern Ethiopia, which is very rural, very like way off the beaten track, and 80% of the locations had GSM networks. And now this is
and you just came back from Ethiopia, right? Or
so I was there 2 weeks ago. We have big programs. Ethiopia's probably been, Ethiopia has been our number one country over the course of the last 15 years. Amazing place, amazing people, just enormous need. And we've done a lot of great work there. Yeah, it's an amazing place.
I'm surprised how much you guys are doing with Edge, with IoT, with LoRaWAN. I mean, it's funny. I'm doing something similar right now for my dad's restaurant, so he's having a different set of challenges with sensors in freezers and walk-in coolers that are breaking down, and he doesn't find out for hours. So I've been dealing with LoRaWAN, and I went that direction because, to your point, there I have a lot of sensors in a small area, and I didn't want to have to constantly changing batteries. So Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these technologies drain the battery. With this solution, I can have the sensor, at least 5 years without having to touch it. So it's great.
Right. So you imagine, the challenge we're facing is it's challenging for people to even fix their water system, which is life for them. So you imagine then I say to them, hey, by the way, can you change the battery in the sensor? It's just not going to work, So that's been really, really key. And it's really complicated, man. It's, and we were manufacturing last year in the middle of COVID during all of these supply chain disruptions. So you imagine we finished R&D on this device, beginning of 2021, and then went to manufacturing in China, getting microprocessors and chips and plastics shipped. And I mean, it was just an absolute nightmare.
Supply chain challenges.
Someday I'm going to write the story of the sensors project, and they're going to read it in the library. They're going to file it under the fiction section because the things that we've been through with this project. But it's so exciting, if we can crack the code on this thing and actually make a technology that can scale. So that's the trick, is like proof of concept. Like we know it works, right? But can you make it scale? Can you make the economics of it scale? Can you produce them and deliver them, support them? Like just getting the prototypes out there, that's like the easy part. But then scale is so much harder.
Super cool. Super cool. So while we're on the topic of technology, so one of the interesting things when I was in New York in your office is what we were able to experience that virtual reality video with the virtual reality goggles. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate that that's gone. I hopefully, with these virtual reality devices becoming more popular, that people can experience this still over the web or some way, right?
Yeah.
Is that a plan?
Yeah. So I think actually, I don't know off the top of my head where you can download that. The film is called The Source. So I'm sure if you just Google Charity Water virtual reality, The Source, it's a beautiful, beautiful film about a young girl, a real story of a young girl who walks for water and then gets water in her village. And the VR experience is it's really immersive.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, again, hopefully we're going to use the power of the internet to reach so many more people, and they're using it on their headsets instead of coming into our office and using it there.
Well, speaking of virtual reality, I mean, the metaverse has in recent months or in the last year or so become a topic of conversation, front of mind for a lot of folks. Microsoft featured what they're doing with the metaverse in their keynote in November for Ignite. Facebook renamed to Meta. And has Charity Water given some thought as far as, is there any applicability of metaverse for what you guys are doing?
I think there definitely is. We're starting to talk about it. I don't think we've figured out what. To be honest, I don't think we've quite figured out what it is.
That's fair.
I think many people are trying to figure out, what is this thing, and then how would we play in that? But I would say, there's no doubt that we're gonna find our place in it in the coming, probably year or two. It's just it's a reality that and it's a way to connect people. And so our core function, our value add in the world is connecting people who want to help with people who need help. That's what Charity Water does. And, we've used a lot of tools for that, storytelling and YouTube and Twitter and live video feeds and, VR. Like, we've used all the tools that were available to us to try to make that connection between, somebody who's sitting in the States saying, I would really, I'd like to help somebody in Uganda, but I don't know how. And somebody in Uganda is saying, I really need some help, but I don't know where to go. So we've created that bridge. The metaverse seems to me like it has the opportunity to do that at a completely different level. I mean, we were early to we were the first charity to get to 1 million followers on Twitter. So we've always been like really early in looking at these things. And so the team's starting to look at the metaverse. We haven't issued out NFTs yet, but I'm sure that's not far off. It's a little bit more complicated, I think, for a nonprofit to do it and do it well than it appears at first glance. So I think NFTs are in the future. Definitely, crypto has been a big play for us. So I think all these things are on the table, and our team spends a lot of time thinking about it.
That's amazing.
If you have any good ideas, send them to me.
I will. I believe metaverse is going to be all about immersive experiences, and I think based on what I've seen and what I know about Charity Water, you guys are going to be at the center of this for sure.
I hope so. I think we some of the most powerful experiences, even for me, and I've done it so many times, is being in the field and being with. I was in Ethiopia 2 weeks ago. I have not traveled a lot during COVID. And I have to say, it was just a very profound experience for me just to be in the villages and be like, wow, I'm working on this every day. Like, I'm thinking about this all day, every day. And then I'm there with the people, and I can just see what a huge help this one little project is. We've built 70,000 projects around the world. Wow. And I'm at one, and the people, they're like, this really helps. Like, we use this thing every day. We take really good care of it. Like, we don't have to walk 2 hours to drink water and share it with the donkeys. And so that immersive experience of being there in person, you try to recreate through good storytelling. Virtual reality takes it to another level. The metaverse, maybe offers a completely different level on that. And
perspective, yeah.
When you connect like that, when you're in that immersive experience, it's hard to say no. It's hard to. It's you realize how what a great thing you can do,
Yeah. You guys are doing some amazing stuff. I wish you the best, and I hope everyone and anyone that's listening or watching that's interested. Again, I'm going to have all the links in the description for more information on how you can become part of this. But you brought up NFTs, and I usually like to close the conversation with a question about how many NFTs have you bought yet? So
I haven't. I'm like, dude, I'm like 49 years old, just like struggling to like understand like what this whole new thing is. So just in all transparency, I'm not sure I totally get it. My son, who's 14, is definitely into it. And so I keep shelling out, like I'm shelling out money for NFTs, but I don't own them, if that helps.
That's funny. So I definitely agree. I think NFTs are it's a generational thing. So I don't find myself, buying into NFTs. I still am a little shocked at how people are buying some of these things, but I'll tell you, some of them are selling for a crazy amount of money. Like it's ridiculous. The amount of money that you're paying to buy, but even to sell, it's become its own marketplace, essentially, buying and selling NFTs.
Oh, totally. I think, I just haven't quite dived in yet.
Well, I'm looking forward to the first NFT that Charity Water mints. Maybe that's another way to raise money and help the cause. I'll definitely be one that'd be interested in it. So, looking forward to that. Hopefully, that happens soon.
Great. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I know the team is working on it, and we want to do things really. We want to do things right. We want to do them in a really creative, interesting, well-executed way, and that takes that needs to run its course.
Christoph, the conversation with you is always enjoyable. It's always fun. Your grasp on technology, especially in the field that you guys are focusing on, is amazing. What you guys are doing is amazing. All the best to everybody at Charity Water. I hope you continue to have great success and attract more people to become part of the cause. Thank you so much for making time to join the podcast. And folks, for everyone that's listening and watching, I hope this brought a different perspective, maybe shed some light on something that you weren't aware was happening, shed some light on how we take some things like as simple as water for granted and how much it's had an effect on people's lives. So thank you so much for making time and joining the show.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks for having me on. And it's great to reconnect.
Absolutely. Take care now.